Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Monday, June 22nd, 2020. Here are our top stories. Retirement savings levels tied to general spending patterns, and the Secure Act doesn't prevent retirement income worries. Joining me now is George Groenbacher, the Chief Community Officer for Money Alignment Academy. George, welcome back to the program. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Great to be back, Jeff.
No, it's great to see you. And let's just jump right in, because the Secure Act, I don't remember if you remember, but the Secure Act was something that we were all talking about before the CARES Act and before this pandemic. So it passed in December. And many industry experts believe that this Secure Act will actually lay the groundwork for more retirement income products within defined contribution retirement plans. So 401ks, 403bs, 457bs, and the like. But I want to get your take on this, because obviously we've had to put some things related to Secure Act aside because of this pandemic, and rightfully so. We've got health, economic issues and that have to be dealt with, keeping the lights on with businesses. But what's your take on this and the retirement income solution as a potential opportunity?
Well, I think fundamentally that helping people get more guaranteed income in retirement is nothing but a really, really, really positive thing. It's funny, I was just reading a Wall Street Journal article from, I think it was 2005, by Jonathan Clements, and he was talking about really keys to a happy retirement are being close to your neighbors, being connected to your community, and then having guaranteed income. And used to be, which you know, that came in the form of pension plans. It certainly comes in the form of Social Security. But if you don't have that, a fixed annuity is a good way to get that. And if you really want to peel back all the layers and make it simple, the reason for that is because you're not having to worry about managing your investments to then take income from them. I mean, the traditional way is I save up all this money inside my 401k. I just take money out as I need it. Well, do I really want to be 75 or 80 years old and worrying about how much am I taking out? And if I'm taking out too much now, is that going to limit my ability to remain retired until 90? So the guaranteed income product, which we're talking about, which is a guaranteed annuity product, it just gives peace of mind. So from that angle or perspective, I think it's nothing but a good thing. Does that mean that everybody should have it inside their 401k right now? Does that mean that everybody should be investing in it instead of traditional investments and target date fund options? I don't know that that's necessarily the case.
Well, I certainly think that you're right. I mean, does it apply to everyone? No. But this Secure Act seems to allow creates a safe harbor to allow more employers to adopt income products, whether they are a lifetime annuity like you're suggesting or some other type of product. George, one of the things that I guess I should frame it for the audience, for those that don't remember George. I don't know how you could forget George, but for those that don't remember George, he's been on the show quite often. He's been on the podcast with me numerous times. George has the benefit of being both an advisor and consultant in the fiduciary space. So he helps 401k, 403b employers who sponsor them, but he also helps individuals. So George, one of the takeaways with annuities is I think there's a lack of educational element here. And I know you focus a lot of this with the Money Alignment Academy, but do you still think that barrier, that education barrier still exists, that people they want that fixed premium, that fixed amount of money coming to them every month? They want that, but at the same time, there's some lack of education, lack of knowledge about how these products work.
Sure. And I think that right now we're all sort of living in chaos. We're all living in turmoil, and it's been that way for a long time, probably ever since the internet, where we're just having way too many sources of information coming at us at once. So do I think that it's a matter of a lack of education? Perhaps. And when I say that, it's a matter of not enough people really understand how it actually works, but it's not because there's a lack of information floating around in the ether. So it's all really in the delivery mechanism of it. So no, I don't think it's a lack of information. I do think it's a lack of education, and it's all in the delivery mechanism. And it's really, really hard for big things like the government or big financial companies to be helping individuals here in Arizona or in Kansas or in California change their savings and their investing behavior. It's really hard because they're trying to make this great thing available for everybody. And so that's where I think that it really is incumbent upon advisors like me and the other, couple 100,000 across the country to help distill this information down in a way that's actually consumable and it's actually then actionable. Because it's one thing to know about something intellectually, but then quite another to actually do something about it. It's a classic behavior gap.
Yeah.
So I think great. Like, it's incredible that you've got these big companies thinking about these things and doing the research and all that. But I really still think that there needs to be an intermediary in there to help sort of decipher it and, for lack of a better term, give people advice on what they should be doing, because that's still missing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's hard to create a one-size-fits-all solution. We saw that with target date funds. We've seen managed accounts to try to mitigate some of that, create some individuality. But decisions, as you're pointing out, really are, I think, one-off basis, need to be done one-on-one, either with an advisor or through with some assistance, or else you could potentially go down the wrong road and not know all the finite details. George, I want to bring it back to employers, because the Secure Act definitely alleviated by creating a safe harbor, alleviated some of the potential pain points of adopting these types of products. And I want to get your sense, you're out there talking to all types of organizations, large and small, whether they're not-for-profit, whether they're a corporate entity. What's been the conversation with adopting these products? Is it hey, I love it and I want it for my participants? Or is it, hey, you know what? I don't want my participants even in my plan at retirement. I want them out. I mean, what's the general consensus? Being blunt, but what's the consensus from your clientele?
Yeah, and frankly, we've had very, very few conversations like this over the past several months since the quarantine and COVID-19. So just being frank about that.
Sure.
But I think that everybody that I talk to, they're all interested in helping their employees to become financially successful, to really help them to lead the lives that they're interested in living. So everybody's always interested in having conversations about, does this make sense? How does this actually work? And then making it available. I think most people are reticent about the first generation of things, or the first iteration of things. But yeah, people are certainly curious about it. We're having conversations about it. And I think that, knock on wood, as we start to come out of this, then that's when a lot more conversations are going to start picking up. But
yeah,
for those groups that are interested in helping their people to be successful, I think that there's a compelling conversation to be had about making some kind of an option like this available to their people.
And you brought up a good point. I want to spend the last minute of this segment on this, George. And you live in Arizona. Last week we had Natalie Walters on, who covers the Dallas area now for the Dallas Morning News. How are things in terms of opening up? You mentioned businesses focused on keeping their employees, keeping the lights on, trying to keep their assets intact. How are things in terms of reopening in the Arizona area? Excuse me.
Yeah. So Arizona is. I feel like this is going to be trite. We're open for business, and I know that there are a lot of companies who are really struggling with the best way to do that, because obviously these organizations want to keep their people safe, and there's also a lot of people that have become really comfortable working from home. So it's really balancing all these. I don't want to call them competing interests, but balancing all these interests and trying to make good decisions. But from a legal standpoint, the state is open.
Okay, well, that's good. Hopefully people will continue to do that safely. Well, George, I want to hold you over. When we come back, we're going to take a look at retirement savings as it relates to general spending and general income. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
The windows on our homes, they protect us and the ones we love, but they do much more. At Renewal by Andersen, making your home more comfortable is at the center of every window we make. It's why we custom build our windows in America and install them in as little as 1 day. It's why we build our frames with exclusive FIBREX composite material that's 2 times stronger than vinyl. It's why our glass helps keep your home warmer in winter, cooler in summer, and quieter all year long. It's why we stand behind every window with a 20-year limited warranty. Why not help lower your energy costs while giving your home and family the best? Call 1-800-835-6525 to schedule a free in-home consultation. Buy one, get one at 40% off with this special offer. Plus, get special financing with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 1 full year. Renewal by Andersen, the better way to a better window. Call 1-800-835-6525 now.
Welcome back. We're talking to George Grombacher, Chief Community Officer for Money Alignment Academy. George, thanks so much for sticking around with us this morning.
Great to still be here.
Yeah, it's great to see you. As always, love the beard, by the way. And let's just jump right into this part of the segment or part of the show. There's a recent report out from the Employee Benefits Research Institute and JP Morgan tying retirement savings to general spending levels. And I want to get your sense for this. We'll probably put up some graphics related to the report. But upon reading the report, getting some, the executive summary, some of the other finer details, what are your general thoughts about how general spending relates to retirement income?
Yeah. Well, it certainly was not any groundbreaking or earth-shattering information to me necessarily. I've been well aware that we are spending too much and saving not enough, and that there's a correlation between the fact that the people on the lower end, so the people that are not saving quite as much, are spending more. So that's sort of a causation kind of a thing. It sort of links back to the conversation that we were having a couple of minutes ago about helping people to become financially successful, help them to generate retirement income. And the fundamental thing is here, I can't do financial planning for people if there's no assets to do financial planning for. And I think it's great that there's organizations and these companies are working to put new things in place, new mechanisms in place to help people save money. But unless you can get people to actually change behaviors and stop spending as much and start saving more, well, then you could have the fanciest financial instrument in the world, and it's just not going to matter. Yeah, so I think this is really one of the fundamental problems that I think that we're facing as a country. What was it 6 months ago before all this happened? 60% of Americans had $400, and that was it, and no real savings behind that. And their biggest concerns were bills that would come up and some kind of an event in the stock market and an event in the economy. And now we've lived through that. So of all the things that we need to be talking about and thinking about, I think it's this.
I think you're right, George, and you bring up a good point about what I would call people not having savings. And what's interesting is during this pandemic, when you look at consumer spending overall, people have actually saved more, right? Because they've had to focus on immediate needs. And to our discussion earlier, whereas businesses were focused on keeping the lights on and keeping their employees, individuals were focused on keeping food on the table, keeping shelter, taking care of their children, schooling their children, right? That they had to do a lot of that if you were a parent. And so in the short run, in the last 60 to 90 days, you've seen a lot of people actually save more money and put it towards those goals. But I think you bring up a really interesting point, George, which is that the issue, the underlying issue is people having enough discretionary income to be able to put money away. And so there's definitely a focus that needs to be had, in my opinion, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but in my opinion, on those who are lower income workers, and how to get them to be more productive over time, learn new skills, be more productive, earn more wages, because it should be like a rising tide, whereas you build more skills, you get better at something, you get paid more, and then as you move up the corporate or the food chain in terms of work, someone new comes in and learns a skill, becomes an apprentice, and works their way up. That's the way it should work.
Yeah, well, I certainly agree with that, and I don't know that we're going to solve that problem today, and I don't think that you're suggesting that we ought to, but yes. And just in terms of language and terms, I mean, having enough discretionary income to be able to save, I appreciate that, but at the same time, it's like, well, savings shouldn't be considered a discretionary thing.
Sure.
So I think it really is a conversation about lifestyle. And what you were talking about a minute ago is that we saw that savings have increased over the past 3, 4, 5 months or whatever. And I think that's just getting down to essentialism. It's getting down to what's really most important to us. What are our priorities? And that's making sure that our families are taken care of and that we're able to provide for them. Okay, well, we've proven that we're able to pare things back and to do certain things. In that report, it talked about that the 3 areas that people are overspending on is housing, transportation, and then eating out. Well, I mean, you just fundamentally don't need to overspend in those areas. And there's been a lot of talk over the past, however long it's been, about, avocado toast isn't the problem, lattes aren't the problem. Well, it's certainly not helping. And the BMW that I'm driving when I'm 25 or 30 years old, certainly not helping. And the overpriced apartment that I'm living in is also not helping. And you can look at that from perhaps the middle class, the upper middle class, but I can almost guarantee that if you really had a serious conversation with any household across the country, you'd be able to find opportunities where they're overspending in those key areas as well. And again, that's probably not a super popular conversation, but I'm interested in talking about solutions and not just talking about and philosophizing on why this might be happening. I want to talk about what you can actually do to put yourself and your family in a position where you are able to be saving money, because that's where we need to get.
Well, I think you're right, and I wonder, I think about the financial press, I think about the press and kind of where they focus their attention, and I think these reports are great because it arms us with statistical information. But again, how do you move the needle? And I think it is, back to our earlier conversation in the previous segment, the one-on-ones. So people have to be able to work with a George Grombacher or maybe a virtual George, right? So you could be in a chat room somewhere, talk to someone. You don't necessarily have to be in person with them, but they have to be able to come to the realization that they need to do this. So that's, I think, owning up to it is big. And the thing that I think I struggle with, and I think we're trying to solve here on the network, at least part of it, is trying to engage people and break these things down into actionable items. So you make some good points. You always make good points, but you made some really good points in terms of putting aside the avocado toast, or maybe eating a little bit less, or the latte, or maybe the BMW. Maybe you don't need the BMW. Maybe you can go with the Camry or the Honda Accord, which seem to be very good cars these days, by the way. Big sellers, although people don't seem to be buying mid-sized sedans right now. They buy SUVs. But George, this is really the time where people can learn, take some moments of reflection, and make some real changes in their lives.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is a time to be increasing our resilience. It's our time to be increasing our resilience from a financial standpoint, and it's our time to be increasing resilience from a physical and mental health standpoint, because I don't know what's going to be next. Maybe COVID-19 is going to be next for the next 10 years. I have no idea. But if it's not this, then it's going to be something else. Yeah. And so we need to get stronger. We need to get stronger financially. That means making tough choices from a lifestyle standpoint. You need to get stronger physically. You need to exercise. You need to put good food in your body. And you need to make sure that your mental health is strong as well. And if those aren't the most fundamental things in the world, well, let's just stick to the basics.
Well said, George. George, it's always a pleasure talking with you. It's George Grombacher, Chief Community Officer with Money Alignment Academy. Thanks, George. Take care. We'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest or someone you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, and more, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare Coverage Helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-757-1451. That's 1-800-757-1451.